Hey there, fellow survivors. Today, I'll tell you about the game that I played for 15 hours in less than 2 weeks, This War of Mine. Developed and published in 2014 by 11-Bit Studios, also known for developing Frostpunk. This War of Mine is a side-scrolling survival simulator that I once didn't pay attention to, and only recently have come to truly appreciate it. This War of Mine is a game in which you have to make tough moral decisions, like who to rob first, seniors or beggars. It's a game where a brothel has better security than a military outpost, and trading guns is the best way to secure a comfortable life. The events of the game take place in the city of Pogoren, which has been under the siege for a long time. You are playing for a small group of people who have managed to survive, for now, because the constant shelling, snipers and gangs of looters will gladly help you to speedrun your death. Remember, there is nothing nice and beautiful in modern wars. You will die like a dog, for no reason at all. This phrase best reflects the essence of This War of Mine. There's a difference in gameplay during day and night. In the daytime you can upgrade the shelter, trade goods, or roll a few dozen cigarettes. Of course, that's after all your characters are fed and have a place to rest. The most fun happens at night, when you go into planning, where you can choose a role for each character. There are 3 options in total. Send one of them to scavenge for resources, assign to be on guard, or leave one to sleep. Looters can raid your shelter during the night, so if you don't want to lose your precious valuable items, I recommend leaving at least one person to stay on guard. Of course, that's if you are not playing for one person. In that case, be prepared to get mugged on regular basis, because the randomness in this game always works against you. Now let's talk about scavenging, because this is the most interesting part of the game and something that you will be doing most of your time. Basically, there would be 2 types of scavenging. The first one is when you just run to an abandoned location, take all the loot supplies you can find, bring it to one point and peacefully return home. And the second one, where you do the exact same thing, but on a location with other people. They could be soldiers, thugs, or just ordinary people that you decided to rob. In this case, you will have to choose between stealth and less peaceful options. Don't be afraid. If something smells fishy, you can always try your luck with escaping. How far you'll be able to run away depends on several aspects, like whether your character is equipped with a military vest and whether the enemy doesn't have firearms. Because, well, you know, running away from bullets is quite troublesome. Naturally, every serious scavenge will require maximum of your concentration, especially in military location. You do one thing wrong there, and the gunfire will be the last thing that your character hears. Conventionally, the game can be divided into 3 phases: setting up the shelter, outbreak of crime, and winter phase. Each of them has its own characteristics, but nothing too complicated. Just make sure you have enough ammunition, a few stoves, and a fuel supply, so you don't freeze to death. I've already told you about looters and other problems that await you, but what about hunger? After all, during the siege of the city, finding food is not such an easy task. As you expected, in order not to die of hunger, you will have to exchange your resources for food, put your life at risk during a search of it, or even resort to theft. Believe me, people are capable of much worse things when their survival depends on it. Of course, stealing from pensioners is immoral, and it depends only on you whether you can survive this war and preserve your humanity. In fact, if you play wisely, you won't even have to steal anything. All you would need for this is to craft one trap for rats and a vegetable garden. Now you have a steady supply of protein and fiber. Also, you can abuse the system and don't feed your people for days. This will save you lots of food, but it will make your character sad, and in the long run, it will lead to a bad ending. To complete this War of Mine, you need to hold out until the ceasefire. It takes from 25 to 45 days, and depends on the chosen scenario. For example, playing for a father with a child can take you 32 days, while 3 men will have to suffer for more than 40. In fact, after the 30th day, there is basically nothing to do in game. Seriously, after you have built all the workshops and set up the medicine production, the only thing that is left for you is trade, because it no longer makes sense to go on excursions and risk your life. enough when you can exchange anything for a few bandages, especially when traders come to your base, where you literally strip them down to their underpants. My first introduction to the game went quite as expected. I suffered and learned from my mistakes. The first of them was the lockpick craft. They are disposable and require valuable loot parts, so the best you can do with them is to sell them to a trader and buy something useful. For example, components for crowbar crafting and, if you haven't made one already, shovel. These two items will become your irreplaceable companions when exploring the ruined city. A crowbar, similar to a lockpick, can open locked doors, cabinets and, if necessary, enemies. It's quite noisy, which makes it not suitable for stealth, but one crowbar will last you for about half a game. The shovel's only function is to clear debris that are abandoned at your base and some locations in the city. Of course you can do without it, but if you value your time and want to find loot as quickly as possible, I recommend crafting it. Each character has certain perks. Someone can run fast, someone is good at trading, but the most important thing is the inventory size, because it depends on how many things you can pick up during the scavenge, and if there's not enough room, well, you will have to come back to location several times. For some time I also suffered because of a small inventory, until one day Boris knocked on my door. Despite the low running speed, this is the only character in the game that has a 17 cells inventory size. He is a legend and helped me to clear more than one location, and without exaggeration was the only pleasant thing that happened in the scenario with Iskra and Krista, until one day I forced him to kill two people, after which he got tilted and left my group. If you bought the game with all the DLCs, then sooner or later you will encounter children. Children are gonna be children. Their abilities are limited, they constantly whine and stunlock you with their dialogues. On top of that, you will also have to cure them, because as soon as you go on a scavenge, some damned bastards will break into your shelter to hurt them. All in all, Iskra made my first gaming experience not very pleasant, and I was able to truly enjoy this war of mine when playing for 3 men. However, this doesn't mean that DLC is bad. On the contrary, it shows very clearly that the wartime is the most difficult for kids. They simply don't understand what the fuck is going on around them, and just like all the other kids, they should be at school and not to deal with all this. There are multiple endings for each character, but basically all of my people either committed suicide or became dead inside. Apart from Zlata, she spent the least amount of time with us and simply didn't have enough time to get fucked up because of the new reality. You know, the atmosphere of this war of mine reminds me of Zomboid, because you begin the game at the lowest point, and it depends only on your skill and abilities whether you can survive the war. Actually, it's not that hard. If I was able to beat the game from the first time without any experience, you will definitely be fine. It's much more difficult to keep good mood of your people. Most characters in the game have addictions. Coffee addicts will demand coffee from you, and smokers at least 3 cigarettes a day. The absence of these things will negatively affect their mood and make them sad. I strongly advise you not to ignore it, because there is no turning back from the road of sorrow. I once sent my fighter on a scavenge to pick up some components, after what he got depressed. All my attempts to cheer him up, including playing guitar, cigarettes and even fucking music on the radio, have failed. Yes, after about 40 hours of playing, I learned that with the radio you can not only receive useful information, but also listen to music. Does it have any effect at all? I don't know, but if I hear the damn song one more time, I'm going to snap, because listen to it every time feels like torture. It's like a nightmare where the world is falling apart and the same melody is playing in the background. Anyway, every now and then other survivors will come over, asking for help, giving you resources, or as it was in my case, leaving their sister at your doorstep. Mate just knocked on my door and asked me to look after her for a few days. After what, he disappeared and never showed up again. Whether he wanted to get rid of her or something has happened to him, I never found out. But this event made me rethink my attitude towards children, because they are boosting morale. Roman, the main dead inside of my group, finally stopped without being sad, because we had a child to take care of. All that we have talked about before is the classic mode, and it's fucking awesome. Unfortunately, after you play the game a few times, there's nothing much left to do. The strategy of survival almost doesn't change. You set the metal workshop, craft a shovel, crowbar, and clear the nearest locations. Fortunately, if you get tired of the classic mode, the story mode comes to the rescue. Now, I will briefly tell you about each of them, and we will start with the simplest one. Father's Promise. You play for a man named Adam, who lost his wife and has very ill daughter. Tough luck! Your brother kidnapped her to use at the safe corridor, and now you spend the rest of the game trying to find her. I'll be honest, the first time I screwed up a little and got myself dead. After what, the game also took the piss out of me, offering to continue the game from the last day. It was a bug, because after loading all I saw was a message of Adam's death and game over. Then the game asked me again if I wanted to continue from the last day. It's a very short and linear story that you can easily finish in 12 days. The game gives you exactly as many resources as you need, so try not to craft extra workshops. Otherwise, you, just like me, will have to start over. But even so, there's nothing complicated in here. So you would understand, by the end of the game I had 3 assault rifles, 44 bullets, and a whole bunch of food that I never needed. Second story, The Last Broadcast, is much more interesting. In this one, you will play for the crew of a small radio station. That is a man named Malik and his wife Esma. That's in theory. In practice, you will run by Esma almost all the time, because Malik is disabled, and the only place where he can somehow move is the 3rd floor. Most part of the game you will walk around the city and collect the information to broadcast it on the radio later. For example, to warn people about a sniper in the park, to save hostages that military are holding in the basement, or even such trivial things as the price of a certain products or weather. Helping the residents of Pogoren is your main task in this story. However, as it usually happens in real life, you start telling the truth and it will not go down so well with authorities. In this case, the military. Therefore, if you value your life, always think in advance what to say and what not to say. I also had to replay the story, because I forgot to turn on the recording and lose out on one of the most dramatic moments in the game. A very strong and sad scene, where only a truly despicable person can ignore this war crime. Fading Embers is the last, and in my opinion the most difficult story, because you start the game in winter and with limited resources. In addition to this, some man crashed into your house and now is dying in your bed. Immediately after launching, I finally understood the reason for her mixed reviews on Steam. Cutscenes. There are many of them and they can't be skipped. In fact, during the first playthrough you won't even notice it. But if suddenly, for some reason, you would want to replay it to get a different ending, yeah, you will notice. This time, your characters would be an orphan named Anya and a jerk named Ruben. Anya's family has been collecting artwork pieces for decades, and now it's up to you to save the family heritage. I was sure that I could do it, so I was spending all my resources on creating a fuel, until one day they just ran out. Sorry grandpa, but 6 fuel points look way too attractive to keep your sculpture. In total, I've burned only 2 pieces of art during the entire game, and I don't regret anything. A special attention in this story deserves a trader, who one day told me that soldiers were entering the city and carrying out cleansing raids on churches and other important places. Do not let yourself be deceived. Because of this scumbag, I was freezing at the base for several days, only to end up going back to the museum anyway. In fact, this is your new shelter now, where you, together with Milena, who is in charge of the museum, will try to preserve the cultural heritage of not only your family, but the entire city in general. Dozens of art objects that other people want to either destroy or use for their own benefit. Of course, my storytelling was superficial, because in this mode the most important thing is the plot, and if I'll give away all the important details, then what's the point of playing it? It's difficult to say which of the stories I liked the most, because each of them had cool moments, but in my humble opinion, The Last Broadcast is the most interesting of them in terms of plot. As for the story mode itself, I was a little disappointed with it. At first I thought it was going to be something similar to challenges in Zomboid, where you will be thrown into insane conditions with limited resources and forced to survive, but that wasn't the case at all. The game will hold your hand and guide you through the plot, at best giving you a choice of which of the 3 locations to go to first. It's not so bad if you're playing for the first time, but after the classic mode, such a gameplay seems a bit too simple. In conclusion, if you don't experience enough of pain and suffering in real life and are looking for it in games, this War of Mine is exactly what you need. The game is great and I strongly recommend it. It's often on discount, so if you don't want to pay full price for a 10-year-old game, wait for the sale. Now, a few words about the next videos. I have more than 70 games in my library that I've been wanting to tell you about for a long time, so from now on, only game reviews will be published on the channel. This was the first one of them, and I hope you enjoyed it. I'm very grateful to everyone who supports my channel on Patreon and buy me a coffee. You are the best. See you in the next videos.